Welcome back to the Becoming More podcast, episode number 22. Before we get started, I want to ask you to like and subscribe on YouTube and to rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Here in Becoming More, we go in depth talking to some amazing people about how they have changed their life dramatically and have inspired others to do the same. Today, I am joined by Eddie Fackler. Eddie, how are you doing today?
Hey, Brad, I'm doing great. It is crisp and cold here today where I am. So I'm doing well. You?
I'm doing pretty good. It's also cold here. We are recording Memorial Day weekend, and it is unseasonably cold in most of the country.
Yes, it is.
Which is so strange because it's, I saw a meme yesterday that said the weather took stopped, went from 90 to 55 like a state trooper was on the side of the road. And I was like, that's perfect, because it's so true. So Eddie, I like to ask everybody on this show, what's their bottom line of their journey so far? Like kind of like an elevator pitch kind of thing. What do you say your bottom line so far is for your journey?
I have lost half my body mass. I went from 400 down to 200. Thus far, it's not been a quick journey, but it has happened.
That's amazing. I mean, any loss that's significant once you hit like 25 pounds is just seems amazing from where you were when you were at the 400, right?
Yes.
And now you're half your size.
Yes.
And what I like to do to kind of go back is to try to find out like more about how you got to that point, right? So like, were you a heavy kid growing up? Were you like an athlete and then, you packed it on later? Like, because like some people like have the freshman 15 or 50 in college age, or just an amalgamation of life. Like you just kind of just went up as you got older, and then you eventually got to a point where you knew you needed to make a change.
All of those. Everything you just mentioned really kind of applies to me. As a little kid, I was really skinny, super, and then, I hated everything. My dad forced me to eat stuff, which of course I hated, and now today would be considered abuse. But in retrospect, I'm thankful he made me try things, even oysters, because now I love oysters, and I even eat raw oysters now, and I never would have even thought about that in high school or as a kid. But probably in my early teens is when I started getting heavy. Maybe even like as early as 10 years old, I became chubby. Something that I don't know that I've ever really shared before, but in middle school, you're not as old as me, so I don't know if you remember, Captain Crunch with peanut butter Captain Crunch had an elephant as its mascot. His name was Smedley.
Oh yeah, no, I don't remember.
Smedley loved peanut butter, as do elephants, because they love peanuts. And because my name was Ed, my nickname became in middle school Smedley.
Oh man!
Which at first I didn't realize how derogatory or cutting that was. But yeah, that's just so even then, even in middle school, I was very heavy. In high school, of course, I played offensive line because that's what fat kids do. And then I guess my second year in college, I went on one of those like diet plans of like shakes and stuff back in the day before they came prepackaged. And I got down to like 175 or something. And then up through college, I started getting heavy again. And then I moved to the Philippines to be a short-term missionary. And there, because of just playing basketball constantly, because that's what they do in the Philippines. Not as a cliche or whatever, but it's like it is the national sport. And eating a further Spartan diet, I got back down to 175, and it felt amazing. I had all the energy in the world. I could run around, like crazy. I was like 21, 22.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went to Japan. I stayed here for a bit, put weight back on, moved to Japan to make money to pay off my school bills, and started riding bicycle a lot, like literally to work every day and back, and got down to 175 again. And I stayed with a Japanese family, and their son, who was in middle school, had his school uniform. And one day on a whim, his mom said, "You've lost so much weight. Can you see if you can wear Hiroshi's school uniform trousers?" and they fit.
Oh wow.
And they were like size 29 waist. They were so tiny. And that was a bit of a freak. But then later, you know, all it takes is a series of small changes, not only to do something good, but do something bad. And I started putting weight back on.
Hmm.
So before I left Japan, I was 380.
Oh wow.
And everybody would say to me, I can't keep weight on here. The food's so bad.
So, so,
Like,
so that
how are
brings up
you
a
gaining all
question.
this weight?
So you said you were like 175 again in Japan when you
Yes,
tried on the uniform. How long
yes.
was it before you left that you hit the 380?
Well, I was there 15 years.
Okay, okay, so it was a few
So
years.
yeah, it wasn't
After.
like overnight. You know,
Okay.
it was
Well,
a
I mean,
long
because
time.
sometimes you hear about the stories of people that gain like 100 or 200 pounds within a year because they
Right,
just go off because they just binge and binge, and that's why I was just
right.
curious if what the time frame was. Okay.
No, I mean, I was riding bicycles so much and my metabolism was stoked so high that according to all the fitness trackers and, you know, programs that I was running, I was burning in the ballpark of 6,000 calories a day.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, I was going to the gym. I would ride 15 miles to work. I would go to the gym. I would lift weights, and I'd spend an extra hour on the elliptical and or the life cycle. And then on my days off, I would go out and ride a century on my bike. And it's like, you know, I was always hungry,
Yeah.
and I could not keep weight on. It was like falling off of me. Well, then what happened was my job changed from being at one position to now I got promoted, so I'm going everywhere.
Hmm.
So I would start the day here, end the day there, which meant I couldn't ride my bike to work anymore. And I also didn't have access to the gym to like, get a shower after a ride. And so all, you know, that little change, but then my metabolism was still jacked.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was right, you know, I wasn't riding and burning 6,000 calories a day anymore, but I was still eating like 6,000 calories a
Yeah.
day. And then on top of that, I would get up late. Um, no, I would stay up late and listen to NFL games, but they came on at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Hmm.
So to get ready for that, I would order pizza from Domino's or Pizza Hut, and they would deliver it to my house, you know, along with like a 2 liter bottle of Coke. You know, I was doing everything possibly that you could do wrong. I did
Yeah.
wrong. And then I would stay up late. So I was messing up my circadian rhythm. You know, I was eating food when I shouldn't eat. I was eating the wrong. I mean, it was like stacking, you know, dominoes up, and then the weight just, you know, and basically started piling on. So
So in Japan, how did the pizza compare to like U.S. pizza?
pretty well for them. It was normal.
Okay.
There were other pizza places, and they had a lot of really good pizza. What you the difference was the toppings that they offered that you won't find here.
Hmm.
For example, they would put tater tots on top of the pizza. They would put yes, sliced potatoes on top of pizza. They would put squid, shrimp. They would even put like fish eggs on pizza
Wow.
you could get as a topping.
I remember
I never did that, but you could.
I was in my wife and I went to Aruba for our honeymoon, and we were there one night. We got pizza and from like Pizza Hut, and I remember it was like some of the weirdest tasting pizza because it was. That's why I asked because the pizza was like it was almost like they used cheddar cheese instead of mozzarella for the for the cheese because it was like a very like a darkish
Orange.
yellowish or
Okay,
light
right.
orange, and I was like, it's got to be cheddar because it was not like and then and you know anytime you go to another country like they have different like the huge chain places have different options than you get in
Right.
America, so that's why I was curious. But yeah, um
No, it was a good pizza. I mean, I will give them that. But then
yeah,
yeah, there were just some that would just have crazy combinations. They had
squid.
like squid. Like, I'll take the octopus for 500, please. Yeah, they would. That was octopus and squid. You could do like there's their mega seafood pizza just had everything from the ocean on.
Yeah.
Even you get seaweed on your pizza as well, which I was like, yeah, no. Corn because they got influenced by England. They would put corn on their pizza, which
Oh wow.
apparently in England is a thing in England as well, like kernels of corn.
Yeah, see when I was in England I didn't get any pizza because I was like, yeah, I think I'd get pizza in Italy. But in England I didn't. I mean I got fish and chips, but yeah, so
how stupid am I? I went to England. I was there for a week, and I'm literally flying out of Heathrow to come back to America, and like we're like 100 feet off the ground. I'm like, ah, I did not get fish and chips the entire time I was there. Like,
Yeah.
there's one thing you should get.
Yeah, that, and I mean, there's a lot of curry you can get. It's pretty good in
Mm,
England, but I'm not really a big curry. I had a little bit when I was there, but yeah. So you mentioned that you got up to like 380 again when you came back from Japan,
right.
and so when you decided to like try to get on track this time, that worked, right? Did you follow any kind of like nutrition plan, or did you just kind of
Well, just
roll as you
to be
go?
clear, so when I left Japan, right before I left Japan to come back, um, I lost about 80 pounds
Okay.
before I came back. This was like 2006, 2007, and I got down to like the two. I lost over 100 pounds final, full stop. And but then I came back, and then through a series of situations, I started putting weight back on. That's when I actually went over 400.
Okay.
So then from there, it was almost exactly 10 years ago. It was the weekend of September 11th, 2011, when I um, was on a men's retreat, and we were out in the woods, and it was really a struggle because we were like self-supported, and we went out there, and during the course of that weekend I realized this I need to make a change.
Hmm.
So I went from that time I went from 400 all the way down to like 217,
Wow.
um, just through tracking everything. I tracked like all my nutrients, potassium, selenium, copper. I had this program. It was called Diet Power. You can't. It's not available anymore. It was an amazing program because in its thoroughness.
Hmm.
Like, and you could put in all and you could put your own foods in, but it was kind of like a DOS based program. It wasn't even Windows really friendly. And then they eventually later upgraded that, but you can't buy it anymore. But it was extremely thorough. I loved it, and the meticulousness of being tracking that data suits my personality a lot. So I from there, and then I worked really hard in the gym, and I to the point there where I was um, soon thereafter I ended up getting married, but my wife was like, you I don't know why you even live at the house because you live at the gym. I would literally I would go to the gym before work. I would go to the gym after work. I would go to boxing boot camp, with my friend's gym, and working off stuff. And it was funny. At some point, I had lost like 90 pounds. And one day, he had like an 80-pound sandbag. You to pick up and carry like 30 feet across the gym, and then drop it at the next station. And then he comes over and not to embarrass me, he quietly puts his in my ear. He says, "Look, if this is too hard for you, don't you don't have to do this." And I looked at him and I said, "Dominic," I said, "I've lost more weight than this bag weighs." I said, "My every day, my every move was me
Hmm.
carrying this bag around."
Yeah.
So he patted me in the back and says, "Go ahead, kick butt. Just don't shut up. I'll shut up and just go do what you can." So yeah, in that sense, it wasn't, and it was the irony is, of course, is that as you lose weight, you're eventually, because you've been carrying around all that weight, your leg muscles get really strong, but now you're not carrying that weight around. And the first thing that happens is your muscles adjust
Hmm.
to what you're demanding of them on a daily basis. So my muscles start, 2 years later, me carrying around an 80-pound bag, now it was a struggle again.
Yeah. 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 It's kind of funny because a couple of weeks ago, because I go to the gym too, and I work with a trainer once a week, and I was doing a leg press, and I worked with her 2 days in a row, which usually doesn't happen. And the second day we went down. I usually do like 350 on the leg press, and
Right.
then I went down to 250 on the leg press. The second day, because just to take it lighter on, rather than don't want to overdo it.
Right.
And when we started, and like we were on, like after I did the first set, I said, this is what I used to carry on me, like on top of my current weight.
Right.
And she was like kind of blown away a little bit by that. And I was just like, yeah, I was like, it doesn't, I was like, I can't even imagine how much pressure I was putting on every part of my body with it.
And
And I
it's
still
even
have
worse
more to
because like
lose, but yeah.
right. I mean, because walking and or running or anything, it's worse than the 250
Hmm.
because you have the impact of the gravity and everything. That's why I always tell people when they're starting out, um, don't run.
Yeah.
Like, do not, like, I want to run. I'm like, cool, great. That's a goal down the road. Don't do it now because you will destroy your skeletal structure. You're going to destroy your joints. It's got to be a progression.
Hmm.
I didn't do that. If you want to do it, that's on you. I'm not recommending that, but like that's something to get to, at
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not the easiest. I mean, especially if you just start running out of nowhere, it just seems like
Yes,
walking is a nice progression to get to running because
yes,
we're walking. Let's do like the old speed walking from the late '80s, early '90s.
yes.
Okay, so as you got to lose weight, again, um, and you were like living in the gym. Uh,
Right.
so you mentioned how long the weights you went to and from. You went up over 400 and got back down to the twos. About how long did it take you to get to that point of losing
Um,
or a good portion of the weight?
well, see, and then that's not even the end of the story,
Yeah.
because I got down to 217, and then I went all the way back up. Then I got married, and there are adjustments there
Hmm.
because unlike my mother, my wife's a really good cook. we later, my mother, rest her soul, we realized that was not a good cook. Because I remember one time I I bought Brussels sprouts, and my wife's like, "Why are you buying Brussels sprouts?" I'm like, "Well, I read that they're really good for us, so we should get these." And so I said, "I hate them because they taste horrible." So she took it upon herself to find a tasty way to make Brussels sprouts.
Hmm.
Not to segue too far here, but so then she found roasting them because it's this whole new world of flavor. And so, with that, I started putting weight back on, plus the job and everything. So I got back up to like 330. And that would have been Christmas 2017. And that kind of was the last peak. And then
Okay.
from there, I started a series of things. She made some suggestions and said, like, here, you should read this book. And like, she says, what about doing this? And so I went on one of those like meal replacement plan things where you're eating bars and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, I now recommend people not do that because after I started doing it, and it got me kickstarted, but I realized that what was in all that food um, was not really helping me metabolically.
Hmm.
There's a lot of oils in there and things that I tell people do not take these. And it's like David Goggins in a sense saying, "Don't do what I did. Learn from my mistakes. Find something else. Don't you know eat real food." Is what it really comes down to. And it's so then from there, that was from 330 down. I lost 100 pounds in 6 months. Um, kind of building my own little weight loss system. I mean, not something I'm selling to people. It's just that I kept digging deeper, learning, studying, reading books, and taking pieces from here, pieces from there. Well, and then I found the crossovers. Well, this guy, Jason Fung says this, and that supports my experiences. And so I put a lot of trust in what he said with that. But then I had something else from this other guy, like John Gabriel is an interesting book that I think a lot of people haven't read. And then also a lot of stuff from Gary Taubes. And I was like, okay, so obviously I'm addicted to carbs. And I don't need grains. I definitely don't want to eat sugar. And so with all of those, I literally lost 100 pounds in exactly 6 months. But I was going at it hard. I mean, I was crushing it. Um, so I took a month off to kind of get my head together and still lost 3 pounds that month. But it wasn't like I went back up, but it was
Yeah.
it flatlined a little bit.
Hmm.
But then I kind of went back on it, and in the last 2 years, I haven't really lost a lot of weight, but I've kept it off. I've stayed in this same range of weight, but now it's like I've come to the conclusion. This is Memorial Day 2021, so my goal is to in the next for the summer for the 99 days of the summer to really go hard at it again and get ready for my 10-year anniversary.
Hmm.
September 11th, looking backwards now, when this is going to air, it will be my 10-year anniversary of me starting my loss at May 400.
Hmm.
It's also the date of my next 100-mile race,
Oh wow.
which is which I was talking about this yesterday. I was running in the park. I was like, it's exactly 10 years. I mean, to the day
Yeah.
of the thing that slipped me over. So I'm really fired up. I'm like, now I wanna be in top form. I got to be. It's 15 weeks away. So I have 15 weeks to lose X number of pounds, and I'm not going to focus as much on the weight as I am on just on the strength, the nutrition. The weight will take care of itself at this point, just
Hmm.
based because of everything else I've learned.
Yeah, and I would assume that with those 100-mile races, endurance is a big part of it too, right?
Yes. The and I think this is a crossover. I mean, people say, well, so you're saying to lose weight, I have to run 100 miles. I'm like, no. Um, I think I suggest everybody in their lifetime do a 100-mile race, just because of what you learn.
Hmm.
It's all about your mind, and it's endurance, but it's also mental endurance. Because I promise you, you are gonna want to quit. Like the wheels are gonna come off.
Yeah.
Something stupid's gonna happen. In my first completed 100-mile race, my right knee stopped bending at mile 30, 30.
Wow.
So I'm only 30% of my way into the event, and I can't bend my knee anymore. So what do? And you find a way, and you take assessment, you study, and I think it's that mentality, and it carries over to weight loss as well. Like if you're trying, if so many great guys and girls on Instagram right now where people are sharing, there's this wealth of knowledge of what people have done and can do. um, I was an English teacher, yes, but they can done. So the carryover is there are going to be booby traps. There are going to be pitfalls. There's going to be potholes in your trip that are going to make you want to give up.
Hmm.
And the trick is not giving up. When the wheels come off, put new wheels on and keep going. And the same in a 100-mile race. I finished the race. It took me over 28 hours of running and walking to get to the end. And then it always blows people's mind, like, so when did you sleep? And I was like, I slept after I finished. Like, you stayed awake for more than 24 hours. Like, I stayed awake for over 30 hours. You got to wake up. You got to get to the race. You got to, when you're
Yeah.
done, you go take a
Wow.
shower. And, and it's like, how do you do that? Don't you get tired? And I was like, of course I got tired. But I didn't get sleepy. I was exhausted, but I wasn't.
Yeah,
And
I had a friend who always said that he was in the military at one point, and because he said he was on a ship, and he got
right,
used to like not being able to sleep for a day at a time because
right,
he would be up, and he said he would always make the comment that he's tired but he's not sleeping
right.
because you can be physically exhausted but like not have to sleep
I'll
or
tell you when it's
not need to if you have that like because he just said that I don't want to say training, but he'd trained himself in that way where he didn't have to sleep. And he could
the
go,
repetition of experience,
yeah,
which
yeah,
I
so,
think again comes back to losing weight. Like the more success, like you're only going to have successes if you push yourself and have failures.
hmm,
So
yeah,
the more you fail, the more opportunities you give yourself to learn, to like biohack yourself and figure out, okay, well, this is what I can do. Um, you know, I'm recently back in March, I did a 47-hour event. And then recently, last 2 weeks ago, I did a 72-hour run. And my running coach said to me, he said, like, I recommend like go off coffee prior to the event. So make your body responsive to caffeine again because you're drinking too much coffee, so your body it just becomes normalized. He said, so when you get into the event and you need to stay awake, he goes, that's when you hit the coffee because now it's like hitting NOS into a car engine,
yeah,
and it's gonna like and suddenly and you stay awake,
hmm,
and it worked. It was brilliant advice.
wow,
It's
yeah,
those little life hacks that
hmm,
someone who hasn't done it can't share with you because they don't know from experience.
Yeah, and so many. One thing I like to, I know a lot of guests on here have stressed as well in the past is like the how people always want to compare their journey to someone's journey on
Hmm.
Instagram, and so many journeys on Instagram. I mean, I do it too. Is it's all you see a lot of the positive, you don't see the negative
Right,
as much. And one thing like this past week, sometimes I have these weeks like this week, and what happened is I completely went off my plan. I didn't go off and like I'm gonna eat everything in sight, kind
right.
of go off. I just did not follow my plan strictly. Like I just didn't. I meal prepped and stuff, but I didn't like. I wasn't as strict because sometimes I just need a break, like for
Hmm.
a few days, kind of like just like let myself like enjoy what's going on and just like reset, and then get
Right,
back on track the following. It might not be a full week, but it's been a week, and after Memorial Day, I'm gonna get back on track. And but it's
right,
but I've also been at it for 3 years, where
right,
people that are in it for a month can't expect to take a week off a month
right.
in. So
You've established that baseline of success.
yeah. So
So you,
that's but it's also good just to like so often people don't want to give themselves grace. I do too. Like I down like I do it all the time when I downplay how much weight I've lost because I downplay it like I'm like I did it on an episode with I think might know Rob, My Weight is History on Instagram.
yes, yes,
So when he was on and we were talking and I said, yeah, I said I lost 100 pounds, but 100 pounds at my size wasn't the same as 100 pounds at your size.
right.
And he like cut me off and said, no, it's 100 pounds. And because it's just one of those things that we do over time, just a mental health thing, because
Right,
we downplay ourselves all the time, and
right,
don't give ourselves the credit a lot, and then don't give ourselves the same amount of grace when we do f up, and we do
right.
like go after all the Reese's eggs on the day after Easter, I'm just using
Because
it as
they're
an example.
because they're 50
They're
cents
half price,
only
right? Yeah,
at Walgreens.
yeah. But
Been
yeah,
there, done
so
that. You know.
yes, so you
What you
mentioned,
just said though, oh, just
yeah.
real quick, getting back into what you just talked about, give you a personal example for myself. So, in that first year of me losing weight, and I'm down at that point, like at 200, 209, we were on a trip to Dallas and I had done some pretty hardcore fasting. I forget how much I had done during that trip, which I tell you, fasting in Texas as someone who's eating keto slash paleo slash carnivore is brutal because they know how to barbecue in Texas,
Oh yeah, they do.
and you're down there, and we're working in Houston, and it's like I'm walking on the streets of Houston, and there's like barbecue smells coming from office buildings because there's barbecue on every single corner. So we finish, we come back, and I'm feeling great, and we have this family trip planned. Like I'm talking my side of the family, go to the mountains, for like 4 days up in northern PA. You might know it's like was it World's End State Park, Sullivan County. I don't know if you've ever been, but it's gorgeous. It's out in the middle of nowhere. And so I just said to my wife, it's like, I'm just going to do whatever I want this weekend. I'm just going to have fun. I'm going to eat.
Mhm.
So in 4 days, now granted, my body was really depleted. The
Mhm.
water was all out of my body. In 4 days, I gained 25 pounds.
Wow.
And people were like, dude, that's not healthy. And I was like, I gained 25 pounds in 4 days. And I was excited about it, because I was like, I'm going to take it right back off. And I did. Like, I came back and went, and people were, and it's this thing like I had this success. I knew what I was doing.
Mhm.
I'm not going to recommend people try and do that,
Yeah.
but I didn't beat myself up.
Yeah.
And within like 3 days afterwards, I'd taken that 19 of that 25 right back off.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah,
I was like,
I think not beating yourself up is like a big part of it too, especially with the scale, because so many people. I mean, I measure by the scale too, and over time, I found that like I care more about how clothes. I found myself caring more about how my
mm,
clothes fit than what this number on the scale is, because I mean they're kind of intertwined.
right,
But I've noticed a lot. Like so, like I bought jeans a few months ago because I all my jeans were huge because
right,
I don't buy them every size. Like I buy them every. So I bought like
couple
a
of sizes, right,
I bought like at a so I bought it. I remember I bought in 2019 timeframe. I bought like a size 64, and then I had 60s. I used to wear like a 72. So and then I had 60s from like years ago, like 2010, that I
right.
had in my and I had saved them because I'm like one day I'll wear these. Right? We all have those clothes,
Let me
and
guess. You never got to wear them because you went right past them.
No, I did wear them. I actually still have them because like I can still,
Okay,
but now they're like too big. But now I can wear
right,
like a 54. But even those now are getting like I have like this much room
right,
excess, right? But the number on the scale says the same thing it did before I started in the 54 when the 54s were tight,
right,
even though they are way loose now.
right,
Because I'm also going to the gym and working out a lot too. So I kind of
right,
equate it to muscle growth,
right,
even though as opposed to it being the same, because it's obviously not the same. And so many people get like I get wrapped up in the scale number too because I want it to be a certain number. I want it to keep
right,
going down. I want it to be a nice slope downward, right? Or I
right.
guess it'd be this way on the screen.
Or
Um,
whatever.
yeah, I'm forgetting it's mirrored, and it's not. And some people have that. Some people like crush, like they just go straight down like that. But most of us are like the seismograph,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And it can be such a be blunt a mind fuck for anyone that has to because you're like I don't get why it keeps going like this and instead of going straight down
Mm,
or mostly and it's sometimes it is sometimes it doesn't even make sense because you're on track and it still doesn't go down the way you want it to but then you
right,
say you're on track too and like sometimes and you're like but I had these pretzels and then I drank like a couple diet cokes that also lead to water retention and then my favorite always is when I'd weigh in on I used to weigh in on Mondays and I'd like gain like 2 pounds or something. And then by Wednesday, I'd weigh in again, like for myself and not post it. And
mm,
I'd be down like 4 pounds because
right.
that water retention from the weekend or whatever was gone. And I was like, of course, of course.
Yes.
It was always like that. And, you know,
Where were you on Monday? What?
yeah, I always used to use I used to think of the Adam Sandler line, attention that could have been like brought something that could have been brought to my attention yesterday. Yeah. But it's like I feel like mindset is such a huge part of what we of doing it, right? As
Mm,
you were talking about. And stuff like that can really affect the mindset negatively because you get like unless you can get hard enough where it doesn't. But so many people like you're gonna see that and you're just gonna be like, man, I just want to be like I just want to feel normal. I want to be able to like do normal stuff and not have to worry about the
right,
scale. And and I want to get to this weight, whatever weight it is. And then like you're just looking at it and it's just like it's not gonna happen. It's just I am what I am and I'm gonna stop. And like that's when it comes back to what you said earlier with don't quit.
right.
Because like but to get to that mindset of don't quit, like did it take you like a long time to get there? Or was it something that like you kind of adopted early on in some part of your journey?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that
I kind of
nobody
rambled. I
arrives.
kind of rambled a bit, but
No, no, you're good. You're good. I'm just saying, but nobody arrives.
mhm,
Like even like I could be right back there. I mean, my present mindset is such that that's not going to happen. That doesn't mean that I can take a vacation mentally, because it's always a struggle. I don't know. I'm not where I want to be yet. I want to basically create the body that is in the 180 to 190 pound range. Again, you just talked about don't worry about the number on the scale, but to get into that zone, the transformation that I want to create, like, means that I need to be in that kind of frame. And because I'm like 5'10", 5'11", um, but mentally, it's something you have to do. Just like with tracking your food and all these other things, you have to constantly, even now, be feeding your brain the right mindset. If you go on a mindset diet, I mean, sorry, not diet, but like if you stop feeding your mindset the right stuff for long enough, you're going to crash and burn.
mhm.
And that's like putting 25 pounds on in a weekend isn't a problem if you're enjoying it, you're putting life into living, but that can't be your normal. And
Yeah.
something like Gormy mentioned I was listening to one of his podcasts, from, I'm not even sure, maybe I think it was fairly recent. We talked like you we can't get to the point where like I've arrived, I can now do whatever I want,
Mhm.
because this is our reality. I mean, We are food addicts.
Hmm.
You have to constantly keep fighting that fight every day. And that's really, um, not to circle back to your original question. I It was just a slow progression. I
Yeah.
think, you know, by the time I lost 100 pounds, I was at that point kind of starting to fire on stuff. But it wasn't even until I think that following November, December, when my friend suggested, he goes, "Hey, you should follow this guy on YouTube. He's got some really cool stuff." And then right about that time, his book came out, and the guy is David Goggins, and you know, he was a U.S. Navy SEAL, and his book is "Can't Hurt Me." And John, my best friend, said to me, dude, he goes, you should be getting royalties from this book because you tell everybody to read it. And it was like, I mean, I'll be like in the grocery store and someone will start talking to
Yeah,
me. I was
you've
like,
told me a few times to read it or
yeah,
listen
I
to
told you,
it,
you know,
and
and was like,
I'm actually listening to the audiobook right now. I'm like about halfway
but
through it. So
and exactly,
yeah.
it's like right. Have you listened to Goggins recently? And it's not about if you can get past all the swearing. And I love reading the reviews on Amazon, by the way, because they're like, I just can't get past the language. And I was like, dig below. Okay, just push. And there's actually now a clean version if you want to listen
Oh,
to
is there?
or read it. Yeah, there is. He's actually like, okay, fine. If you can't handle it, here.
Yeah.
Um, but it's all the whole book is about mindset. It's
Hmm.
not about going out and running ultras. It's not about doing it, 4,000 pull-ups in 24 hours. These are just things that he needed to do for himself to get himself to where he needs to be to get past his horrible background, his childhood, his history.
Hmm.
And his kind of point is, okay, you look at my life and how messed up my life was, which was really bad. He goes, if your life wasn't worse than mine, he goes, then you have no, that's not putting pressure on you, but then you don't really have an excuse for not being able to figure out. Just stick with it. Just come
Hmm.
back to it again and again. And the whole mindset thing for me, in a sense, in that is just always looking for something new, something refreshing, not to change to, but also to just a different perspective on what's working. Or, I mean, to push, to push myself farther
Hmm.
and don't get comfortable.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
know, if you're eating like keto or you're eating paleo or even if you're a vegetarian, the problem is that we fall into that like ka-chung, 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 ka-chung.
Hmm.
It's a day in day out thing. Somewhere in there, you need to mix it up, not just for your own dietary excitement, but I think just also to say, okay, well, I'm going somewhere new. I mean, I went from eating keto to actually then for a couple of months I went in. I still kind of more or less dabble with this. He's going more carnivore. We're just
Hmm.
like I'm trying to eat like I focus on eating protein. After we finish this, I'm going to have a breakfast of duck eggs and turkey eggs, which is weird, but may sound weird. But I'm out here on the farm in Illinois, and my aunt's like, here, like, and they're like, these duck eggs are monster.
Oh
And I'm
yeah.
like, I'm kind of excited to try one of these because I
Yeah.
know people who eat them constantly.
Hmm.
And but yeah, it's that's and that's tweaking that. But doesn't mean I'm never going to have carbs again. It's just that I'm just like I'm dialing up now because tomorrow starts the beginning of my 99-day push for the summer.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And one thing you were mentioning earlier, before we got into Goggins, was people taking a mindset. You were trying to say like a kind of like mindset break. I kind of like I started calling it as you were talking, I thought about it, I'm like kind of like a mindset holiday. um
Mm,
and because it is a holiday weekend, right?
yes.
As we're recording.
Thank you for everyone who served and gave the ultimate sacrifice. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
want to forget
definitely.
that.
um couldn't be here without them. So
Yes.
but yeah, so like even as I was talking about how this week I've been kind of on my own like break from my plan, like
Mm,
quote unquote plan. I didn't take a mindset holiday. Like I just kind of
mm,
took a break of the plan, but my mindset's still there. So I'm still not
right.
eating like a ton of junk. Not gonna go and like go to McDonald's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner
Right.
and all that. But I it's just it's such a the mindset is such a tough thing because it's always you're always in your head, right? You can't
Right.
get out of your own head,
Right.
so it's and you're constantly judging yourself, or and that's where I think what you said also mentioned earlier was like the life hacks kind of they kind of like are a big part of what helps you stay on track.
Right.
Some of the things that I do, I don't know if you have similar stuff, but so at my desk at work, we like I have this little like flip calendar that has the every day of the
Mm,
month on it, right?
yes, I
And
have that too.
what I started doing when I want to say it was like 20, it was like right after it was actually when I started. So I got it like about a month after I started because I was like, I need some reminder of like where I'm going, where I am. So I came up, I found this calendar and I just, every Monday I would, this is why I did the Monday weigh-in. Every Monday I would write down the weight I was. Actually, it was every Wednesday at the time because I started on a Wednesday. And I would write down like how much I lost or gained every week. And then as each month flips, at the top of the calendar, I would write like minus 32 or minus
Mhm.
240 or whatever whatever it's been total. And then I'd look at this calendar all day, every day, because I would see the number and I would because it's right next to my computer, like right below my
Right.
computer screen. And I would see it. And like when I'd think about like I want a snack, I'd see it. I'm like, no, I can't.
Right.
Because it was just like this constant reminder of even though I know all this already,
I
but
I have a goal.
having that visual uh, reflection there
Yes.
every day helps. And I don't know, do you have any like similar like hacks that you've done while you're losing or just stay on track so you don't go off track as much?
Well, one thing I did, this is not diet related, but for the longest time, starting like over 8 years ago when I kind of first started running after I'd lost a lot of the weight, one of my goals was to run a sub 30 minute 5K.
Hmm.
Now, for people who
Wow.
run, that's not fast.
Yeah,
Okay. But
it'd be fast from well as a walker of a 5K, it's fast.
yes,
So that's what.
yes. So, and so one of the first things I did was to figure out, okay, well, if I'm going to do a 5K in under 30 minutes, what pace do I need to maintain across those 3.11 miles?
Hmm.
And there are calculators online, and so it comes out to 9 minutes and 39 seconds per mile, including the extra 0.11, and that's the killer, that extra little tail on there. And so I actually made that my wallpaper on my computer screen.
Hmm.
So every time, it was like 9:39, as on a digital clock,
Hmm.
and I kept focusing on it. It was on there for 7 years.
Oh wow.
And because I had never hit it, and I was like 9:39, 9:30, and even when I got heavy again, back to 300, um, it was still on there because I'm using it as like a negative stick to like, no, you have to hit this. So I remember the day quite clearly, like when I was going, like I was getting so close. I did like a 30 minute and 7 second 5K.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a race. It was just like I had a course planned out. I'm going to run this, and some people would say, well, like I'll count that because it's so close. I'm like, no, it's not so close. I wanted a sub 30-minute 5K. And so I remember the day I did it, and I got to the end of this rail trail, and I was sitting there. I had pushed myself so hard on the last like half mile that I literally had dry heaves. Like I
Wow.
had about as thoroughly as possible emptied the tank on that run, and this girl comes running back the other direction, and I'm sitting there like, and she's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "You have no idea how," because I knew, like I had it like a 20, it was like a 29:45 or something.
Hmm.
So I was definitely under 30 minutes. And so while on the outside, my body was rebelling mentally. I'm like, I'm like so excited because I had just done what I spent like 8 years trying to do. And
Yeah.
I think my fastest now is, and of course now the next step is when I want to do sub 29. And I
Yeah.
think that's
Of
really
course.
that's
Yeah.
and then or like my fastest mile, like even just to do a 9 minute mile was insane. And yeah, you're definitely not lollygagging to hit a 9 minute mile. Well, like my fastest mile thus far is like just a single mile by itself, standalone, is like an 8 minutes 5 seconds, something like that. 8 minutes 7 seconds. I don't really dwell on it because now my focus is more on going long.
Hmm.
And I think, and this is actually ties back into, well, the journey aspect as well. when you're trying to run 100 miles, and I think this ties in when you're trying to lose 100 pounds, the biggest mistake people can do in a 100-mile race is blow up, which means you go out too fast, you go out too hot, you're running out so hard
Mm-hmm.
that the wheels, like you break your body in those first 20, 30 miles, and then you have nothing left for the last 50 or 60 miles.
It reminds me of I don't know if I know we're both Phillies fans, right?
Yes.
So a couple of years ago, do you remember this pitcher who used to always run into from the bullpen, like full
Yes.
blast, and
Yes.
every time he come in, JT Realmuto, the catcher, would always just shake his head because this guy would come in and he'd blow himself up before he even gets
Exactly.
to the mound, and then he's expending so much energy that he could use
Yes.
while he's on the mound,
Right.
and just
Exactly.
walk or jog like normal. But he'd
And it's
sprint.
exactly that thing,
Yeah.
and you're so excited, but then at some point someone's gonna sit you down and say, look, and then I've done it. I remember when I did a 24-hour race in Arkansas, and it was my second time doing the race. So I had an idea what was going on, and it's like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm just crushing, and I'm like gung 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 gung. I'm
Mm-hmm.
knocking off these miles, and my friend John, who's like back in the hotel with his family, showing up the next morning to do like this big charity run with us, and he's like, "Yeah, you're kind of going too fast." Like it's external feedback.
Mm-hmm.
People are seeing what's really happening, but you're too stupid to realize that you're damaging yourself. And
Yeah.
I think that's we need those people on the outside to give us feedback. And I think that, not to get too off track here, but like even within Instagram, there's always that thing of like, I don't want to tell him, I don't want to tell her what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very delicate balance, like just going, if I were you, I would do this. I'm telling you this from my own personal experience of messing this up badly. And so in that race, my first 50K was a personal record. It was the fastest I had ever run a 50K, which is like 31 point something miles. And people are like, when I tell people who are not runners, they get like, oh, that's amazing. Well done. I'm like, no, it wasn't amazing. It was stupid because my goal wasn't to run 50K. My goal was to run as far as I could in 24 hours. And you end up losing track of the big goal to gain self, like what, affirmation or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
on this tiny thing that really doesn't matter. No one, I don't care that my fastest 50K was, ooh, hooray. That wasn't my point. That wasn't the reason why I was there. My goal was to see if I could do 100 miles in 24 hours. I did not. I ended up doing only 76. And that makes you make like only 76, And why I was angry because I wanted to get 3 marathons in that, at least in that 24 hours, and I missed it by like 3 or 4 miles.
Yeah.
And so you end up,
Jeez.
robbing Peter to pay Paul,
Mm-hmm.
and you rob from your big goal to get something that at the time you're just like, I feel so great. Well, okay, just stay the course, stick with this. And then when I did my 100, it was the same thing. It's like I set a meticulous chart of like, at this point, I want to be here. I want this pace for these miles. I know I can run faster than this, but I'm holding back. And there was a kid much like maybe half my age at that race. And I met him, I passed him on a turnaround point, probably like the 54-mile mark. And he said, I was encouraging him, like, come on, man, you're looking great. You're doing awesome. I said, but do not let me catch you. Like, because if I catch you, that means you're going way slow. And you're like this young, you're full of energy. You're doing amazing. And he's like, oh, you won't catch me. You will not catch me. Mile 97, I caught him.
Wow.
And I ended up finishing at least half an hour ahead of him, if not an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that thing like, and I think this relates back to our journey as well. Pacing is so important. Like, everybody gets so, we want to see that change on the scale. And the scale is not about today's scale number. I mean, it's a delicate mental balance here where you need to do the work to move today's scale number, but your long-term goal is down the track somewhere.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I like to tell people, because like I have friends that I've kind of helped. We as well, people don't know, but we've met in person and
Yes.
we've talked about some of these things. and I kind of coach a couple friends. I've coached a few friends over time on like how to get them better. And I come down to like they have a goal of like say it's 100 pounds they want to lose in a year or something. And I say, okay, I said, well, if you want to lose 100 pounds in a year, you have to lose 2 pounds a week, right? So can you do 2 pounds a week every week? And they're
Right.
like, well, I know I can do 2 pounds in a week. And I was like, yeah, but can you do it every week? I'll tell you the answer is no, because
Right.
nobody's going to be perfect on any nutrition plan. There's
Right.
going to be moments you're going to be tempted. You're going to have just life come at you, and you're going to be stressed. And you're going to go get ice cream, or you're going to want that piece of cake at the office Christmas party or
Right.
baby shower, or take your pick of what it is. I mean,
Right.
there's going to be some times where you're not gonna. So you'll have weeks where you lose 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds, but then you'll have weeks where you gain 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds. So
Right.
you want to try to just have a deficit, and that's why it can be so hard for people to understand that, because it kind of gets like it becomes part of that mind f I talked about earlier, because so many times when you're trying to like lose, and then like you lose, you know first week of May you lose 3, second week of May you lose 4, third week of May you lose 2, so now you're at what, 9 pounds lost in May, right?
Right.
Fourth week of May you don't, you gain 5, so now you're at
Right.
4. So now you've lost all but the first week of your, like, you've lost 2 weeks worth of losses from 1 week of gain,
Right.
in terms of the net loss.
I would
And
say you
can,
handed back.
yeah, you hand it
You
back, right?
gave, yeah, you handed it back to the dealer kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it can kind of just get it kind of I'm kind of focusing on the mindset because we've been talking about it a lot, and it gets to be such a it's just so tough. It really is. Like there's no getting around it. There's no like there's no magic pill.
Oh,
There's
thank you
no
for saying
magic
that.
answer. Like it's just you have to just deal with it and just think of I used to say the scale was data points, but I was kind of BSing it a little bit too, because it's more than just a data point. But I would just kind of think of it that way, because then I was like, I don't focus on it all the time. Because if I focus on it all the time, I'm gonna like drive myself insane. Even though I
Right.
do, I do weigh in like almost every day. Like I check it every day because I'm a psycho.
Yes. I know, me too. And then, but then you get see, then there's again, it's about finding that balance. Like some people benefit from weighing in once a week, and then
Hmm.
you get these people who start weighing themselves like 5 times a day.
I'm not there, but
And no, but I'm not saying you.
yeah.
I mean, but and that's so unhealthy because I'm like, okay, you realize that just because it goes in your mouth doesn't mean that you've gained that weight. But food has mass.
Hmm.
Water has mass. From in our world, it has weight. So when you put that in your mouth, it's not in your body. It's like literally traveling through this tube, this like highway from your mouth to the backside.
Hmm.
And that just because it's inside the frame of that tunnel in your body doesn't mean that you've assimilated it. If you're a big Star Trek fan, I mean, the Borg, so we are the one. So you're not part of. It's not part of you, and it's
Hmm.
it's gonna come out. But if you eat 5 pounds of food, the scale's going to go up 5 pounds. It doesn't mean that you've gained that weight.
Yeah, exactly.
And so people beat them, and people, I just like people just, I don't know what. I seem to find this more so with women than guys because women are so fixated. I mean, when they're skinny as a rail, like I gained 4 pounds. I was like, that's a meal for me. I can gain 4 pounds in a second, and that's why people like it's like, well, I just I can't lose weight, and I'm like, but you're don't like so I always tell people if you're gonna weigh yourself, be consistent. Like, go get up in the morning, weigh yourself, eliminate, get yourself as hollow as you can be, then weigh yourself at the
Yeah.
same time. And don't be weighing yourself one morning at like 5 a.m. and the next day at like 8 p.m. after dinner because
Hmm.
it's gonna psychologically mess with yourself. You're
Oh
gonna
yeah, for sure.
dig a mental hole that you can't get out of.
Yeah, I mean, and I remember last summer I would weigh myself because I used to I usually weigh myself when I get up, like say like 6 a.m.
Right,
And then when we were off because of pandemic, I was going to the gym to swim, and I was also
right,
walking before I'd eat. So then I wound up like I'd like weigh myself again at like noon or 1 before I
right,
ate, and I'd see like this like swing of difference because I expended all this energy
Right,
already, right? And then I see it, I'm like, yeah, it's like 5 pounds less than it was this morning. And
right.
does that mean I should, so that means like every day I
I
should
can
lose
eat
five
whatever I
pounds.
want,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But that means I should lose 5 pounds every day before between the time I first weigh in at 6 and the time I weigh in at noon. But then like the next day, if you weigh in and it's like, oh, it's a 1 pound difference. So it gets back to what I was saying. Like it's never going to be like a magical thing that's going to work out in your favor all the time. Like you got to just be like kind of just be consistent with that too. Cause like if you weigh at 7 a.m. Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you have like a baseline of what it is.
Right,
Right. Instead of like you said, if you weigh in at 8 p.m., like you have the whole
right,
day that you just of everything you did
right.
instead
Well, I
of,
mean, I experiment. I do a lot of experimentation with that, where like I'll weigh myself when I first get up, and then I'll go off like a 3 or 4 or whatever mile run,
mm-hmm,
and I'll come back and weigh myself. And it's amazing, like I because you sweat. I mean, and
mm-hmm,
most of the weight that you lose comes out through your nose and mouth. Because as you break down fat into its component parts of carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen, then it basically it goes out through the air. Well, so I can lose 3 pounds in a run like that. What people don't often realize is that your body will actually absorb water through your skin. So I've actually weighed myself before a shower when I'm like really depleted, and then I'll take a shower and then weigh myself again, and I'll have gained like 7 or 8 ounces.
oh wow.
And people are like, "How is that possible?" I'm like, and my scale is killer accurate. I mean, it's actually a
Yeah.
shipping scale,
Okay.
for packages. And that's the reason I bought this scale, was because like I step on and off 15 times, and I'm all like within an ounce every single time. It's like right there. So I mean, like there's all these things that you realize, like that's why the number on the scale really doesn't mean that much.
Mm-hmm.
It is like you said, it's a data point across a long period of time.
Yeah, yeah, because and the only thing that I would add before we kind of transition to another topic, is that you'll see a lot of data points of different people's journeys, and like everybody's at a different point. And I
Right.
just like to stress, I just stress it because so many people get bogged down in the comparison, even though we all say we shouldn't compare. You should only you should only compare yourself to yourself. But it just seems I've seen over my time of being on social media in this community, I was kind of like a lurker for a while before I really put myself out
Right.
there more. And because I use my own private, quote unquote, private account for a while.
Right.
And, I would see people that would kind of come in and come and go. Like I've seen a few people like that.
Mm.
And, then because they get quiet and then they gain a lot of their weight back. And then because they just don't stay consistent. And it just is like, you got to
And then
just,
they're embarrassed.
yeah. And
So
I mean, we can all understand that because we've all
yes.
had the yo-yo effect. And it's so often like, especially when you're dealing with people in your private life, or you like, it was always this thing. I remember about 10 years ago, I tried to do a diet and I lost like, I don't know how much I lost because I didn't have the scale could weigh me, but like
Mm.
I had gotten down to where I was wearing like a 5X in shirts a lot out of DXL, and I got down to like I could fit in the 3X. Like it was skin tight, but I could fit in
Right.
the 3X, and I was
You're in
wearing,
it.
yeah, but I did it right. I just tried on like a sweater vest or something, but I was like, I just want to try something that I can put over top of my current shirt just as a quick thing. And now I wear 3X and 2X in like some shorts and stuff. But you know, when I hit that 3X, I was like, man, this is great. And I estimated I lost like 70 pounds because of how much like my waist had gone down like in inches.
Right.
But I did it for a while, but I didn't have the mindset. I just did it. And
Right.
because I just was like, I cut out salt and sugar, cut out soda,
Right.
cut out like iced tea, cut out not too much iced tea because I like that, but but cut out a lot of stuff, and then it worked for a little while. But it was another thing where you can do it for a little while, and then after a while, you're just like, I just want to go back to eating what I want to eat because you have the food addiction, and you constantly
Right.
see advertisements, and you constantly see it out in public when you go to restaurants and people having like because like the really fancy desserts look really fun, really really good,
Mm.
and you might want it or whatever it might be. And I don't really know I know what I'm talking about, but but it's just
Mm.
one of those things where it can be alluring to get to the point where you've lost so much, but you have to be able to put in the work after you've gotten to that point and be like, I need
Right.
to keep going, right? And like that's where I'm at now, because I mean I've lost a lot, but I know I still have a good amount to go before I hit my ultimate goal weight in air
Right.
quotes, which is not really my ultimate, but because I know I'm
Your
gonna have a lot of
ultimate
loose skin.
physique,
So
I guess.
I know I need to hit
Right.
like 250. That's why I want to hit. My number's 250. It's been 250 since I was
Right.
623. So and I'm now in the 370s and it's still 623.
Right.
So or well, it's still 250.
250.
I
Right.
mixed up my numbers. But yeah, so it's just like an everyday battle with the mindset.
Hmm.
Because and you're going to war every day, and some days you lose. some days
Right.
some days you're
You
not
lose the
gonna.
battle, but not the war.
Yeah, you don't want
That's
to
the
lose the
key.
war. That's a good metaphor. I like that.
I mean, I think, but what you were just talking about is a lot of times people beat themselves up because of their food addiction. But what they have to realize is that the entire food industry, billions and billions of dollars, maybe trillions, is focused on getting you, me, everyone larger.
Hmm.
I mean, because their long-term goal is, I mean, is to get, because the fatter we are, the more likely we are to want and need and actually do consume more calories. And the more calories we consume, the more money they make. And there's a really good book called Salt, Sugar, Fat.
Hmm.
And I really recommend everybody. It's not one of the first books people should read because we've got more stuff to do in here. But as far as helping you realize that you are not, it's like Michael Moss, I think, is the author, and like the deck is really stacked against us because they have spent boatloads of money to make that food as appealing and taste wise as as beautiful as possible. They have a thing called the
Hmm.
bliss point, which is where like they're going to increase the sugar, increase the sugar, increase the sugar, increase the sugar. Okay, now we've gone too far, so we back it up.
Hmm.
And it's and they spent all like Kraft, Nabisco, who's now owned by Kraft, and of course they keep conglomerating into bigger and bigger companies that are being run by soulless, heartless people who only want to make more money. I'm gonna get in trouble for that, I'm sure. But
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
and
I have
so
a friend from high school who actually is a food scientist,
right,
and probably he's part of the machine of that. And
right,
it's just the title alone sounds interesting, but there's a reason that they have food scientists employed, right? Because
exactly, and then
they want you to keep consuming what their product is.
right, and or like they can do things like and here's the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is that the nutritional information on the label is self-reporting. They are not there's like they have to put the label information on, but it doesn't have to be accurate. Think about that.
Yeah.
And what they'll do is to make it look better, to make you go like, oh, I can eat this. They make the serving sizes like ridiculously small. Like
Hmm.
Brian Regan the comedian talks, who I love, talks about like he said like the serving size on ice cream is like half a cup or something.
Hmm.
Just like those little paper Dixie cups of ice cream we used to get as kids, and he's like, he jokes about it, saying like, he's like, yeah, look at this. I put this on here as a joke, but like they're actually going out this way. It's like he said, a serving size of ice cream for me is not half a cup. It's like a serving size for me is when my spoon hits the bottom of the carton.
Yeah.
That's a serving size.
Yeah.
And
I can agree.
and what I here's in as a piece of complete transparency. So like a year ago in May, actually this weekend it would be, I did the Goggins challenge, which is where every 4 hours you run 4 miles, and then if you
Hmm.
want to sleep between, but at the start of that 4 hour mark, you run 4 more miles. So that was what pushed me over 1 million steps for the month as part of a bigger goal. But between I think it was like after my 2 a.m. run or something, I came back and I was just voraciously hungry, and I literally ate a half gallon of ice cream.
Oh, wow.
Just like that, and I was like, yeah, I'm okay with this. Now in that month, I also put weight back on. Even that's why just running and walking is in and of itself not going to make you lose weight. Like if your food's still messed up, and actually running will actually it spikes your cortisol, it spikes your hunger hormones. you're going to want to eat more, and you can put on. I know, they say like look at the people that run the Boston Marathon.
Hmm.
So people become really good at running, but that doesn't mean they're fit. I mean, they're fit to run, but what else can they do? He said, how
Yeah.
many people have pot bellies who run the Boston Marathon? More than half.
Really? Yeah,
So
I had no idea because I've never. So I've always. It's not. Before I started getting in this community, I always thought people that ran marathons were kind of crazy because
right,
I was always like, I was like, how can you run like 26 miles or
and then
13
you met
miles?
me.
I know quite a few marathon runners now. I've actually had another one on the show as well, and I actually two more. Sorry. Um, but yeah, it's not really that crazy. Of course, I would have said the same thing about people that walk 5Ks, and then I would
Right.
end up walking two 5Ks a day for like well over 250 days last year. So
Right.
it is what it is. Like
It's a matter of perspective.
yeah. Oh, it definitely is. Definitely.
When people look at what I do and they go like, dude, how did you go 140 miles? I'm like, yeah, but it was over 3 days. It's not. And they're going, no, it's 140 miles. You're like,
Yeah.
you averaged almost 50 miles a day for 3 straight days. And then, of course, because my perspective is different, my goal is different.
Hmm.
I'm like you said before, I'm downplaying it in my mind because like I still want to do more. I
Hmm.
haven't hit the goal that I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That was
And
like
so
last year.
it's
I was
perspective.
so close to like I'm in this like running this group chat where we talk about football and we talk about some of the people in there are runners, and they were all at the end of, it was like New Year's Eve, and they were all like posting like how many miles they ran like for the year.
Mm,
And I was like, oh, that's an interesting topic because like they had like 1,300 or 1,200 miles or whatever. Then I went on my Fitbit and like I didn't even know this was a thing. I didn't know where to find it, but I eventually found the analytic for it.
right,
It was like 1,870 miles or something is how
right.
much I walked. And I was like, that's insane. Because
Yes,
but I didn't realize it. But you do 5 miles a day for 200 days,
right,
that's 1,000 miles.
right.
So, but
In
it just seems
2019, I signed up for that.
outrageous. What's that?
I said in 2019, I signed up. There was a one in the whole virtual community. This is pre-COVID,
Hmm.
where they had a thing like, well, can you run the year? So in the year 2019, can you do 2,019 miles?
Hmm.
Walking, running, however you want to do it.
Yeah.
My friend John's like, I'm signing up for this because like we could totally do this. And you get like these little medallions and stuff, but it's kind of like
Hmm.
self-reporting. And people are like, yeah, I'm at like, and like people just gave up at like 700 miles for the year. And they're basically, I hit 2,019 miles in like July. And I still had and it's, and it comes a point where you're kind of like, you're like, I just, this is impossible. I'm like, yeah, I got 5 months to go and I'm stopping. I think I ended up the year with like 3,500 miles for the year or something.
Yeah.
And we're like, that's not healthy. I'm like, no, I mean, I'm not, it's peaks and valleys along the way, but
Yeah. 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 I mean, and
I'm
it's kind of
not
like,
to diminish what you did, but again, it's where
oh
you
no.
are at that point in
Oh
time.
yeah. Oh yeah. And like this year, I know I won't even get to that level because I also have not been walking as much because I've been focusing on other exercise instead of
Right.
just the walking. So it's been a little bit different. But I mean, I usually get at least like a 5K in most days, unless I take a
Right.
rest day because I don't do every day like I used to. And we're like imminent on on baby watch, so
Right.
things are going to change a lot, and who knows what it'll be like after that. All right, so
You will be well prepared for ultras with sleep deprivation in about 2 weeks.
okay, yeah, that's what I keep hearing. So I'm trying to get to sleep now. So anyway, one thing I like to ask each guest on the show is a non weight loss fitness related hobby or interest.
Okay.
What do you say yours is?
Um, I guess theoretically, it's not so much a hobby right now because I'm not doing it, but an interest that I have is something I'm kind of passionate about, and at some point, I'd like to be able to get back to doing it. Is kite making and kite flying. So using like ripstop nylon, like a carbon spars and things. But it's amazing how the diversity of what is made. Like in Japan when I lived there, That was one of my hobbies as well, and that's actually kind of where I got back into it. Every state or prefecture in Japan has their own regional kite design, which is, how many ways are there to make a kite? Well, they've got like 40, you know. And even you see guys like, you go to like the National Kite Convention. Yes, there's a thing. There's such a thing.
Yeah.
There are guys there who just, these ridiculously creative people who are making these kites that are just super ornate, and they'll put them up in the air and they'll stay up for hours and theoretically even days.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, again, the diversity and the creativity, and I love bright colors. So my wife always says, like, yeah, if I can always tell which pair of sneakers you're going to buy, you want them with the most psycho color combination possible. And I'm like, yep, that's me. I own it. It's, I won a pair of shoes recently, and from a running store down in Bryn Mawr outside of Philly. And they had like three options on color. And I'm like, I want the hot, like salmon red with like the bright yellow accent. Because the gray and black one, yeah, I just didn't do it. But yeah, so I love kite flying, and just being able, it also kind of prompted me to learn how to sew. Because when you're sewing ripstops together, it's not an easy thing. The problem is I need a much better sewing machine
Okay. Yeah.
than what I have, and that's because there's actually a thing called a walking foot that helps make the nylon not bunch up, because you need a smooth, clean line, and you get the right tool makes all the difference in the world. So they're getting the right tools to help you lose weight, makes a difference. The right tools in making a kite, same thing.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I was trying to think of the last time I flew a kite. I remember when I was a kid, we had gotten kites for like Easter one year, and me and my brother got up early and took them out and wrecked them because we didn't know what we were doing.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a long time. But I live down near DC, and out in the summer you'll see people at like the
Right.
Washington Monument
Mall,
flying
yeah.
kites in the mall. They fly kites down there a lot, and it's a cool thing.
Well,
It's
the Indians and the Pakistanis down there, it's not, they have fighter kites, and there's been a lot of pushback and a lot of not about who they are, but about the kites they fly, because they actually put ground glass on the kite lines.
Oh, really?
Because, and then as you saw that across, it cuts the line on the other kite, and that's kind of how the fighter kites fight. Well, the problem is that people who are outsiders don't know what's going on. Those kites actually are dangerous. And that's a long-standing tradition, on the subcontinent of India, in that whole area. But when they do it there, because they do it with nice, clean air, it's an open area, those kites are dangerous. And then within the kite community, a lot of people were really angry about them doing this practice of doing that. And people like you would go like, oh, cool. And they don't realize that thing can cut you and hurt you. So, when they do it in Japan, they do similar things in Japan too. But usually when you're out there, you're all psycho kite people. So everybody knows what's going on, and they're well aware of how dangerous they are.
Awesome. Well, yeah, it's not awesome, but I meant just the topic was awesome because
Right.
it was different. Like, that's why I like to ask about a hobby or interest, because it's kind of get to know everybody a little bit differently and bring up different topics than just like weight loss the whole time, and we get to like experience something different that you don't hear on a lot of. When's the last time you heard about kites on any podcast, unless you listen to a kite podcast? Okay, so kind of wind down here. I like to do a segment called Brett's Corner, which was going to be the original title of this show, but I changed it. And I ask 5 questions. They're the same every week, but different answers.
So we're clear, I have not heard these questions previously, so it might.
You have not. You are the second. You are the third person that did not hear the questions, and second person that turned down knowing them ahead of time.
Okay.
One person I sprung them on, so he doesn't know that yet. Not yet. He will soon. So, number 1, what movie, TV show, or event are you most excited for in the coming year?
I think it's actually, this is coming out this week. See, I don't even know the name of the movie, to be honest. But it is kind of a documentary about my running coach, Michael McKnight.
Mm-hmm.
About his life. I want to say it's something like Breaking Break. It's about, because he used to be overweight, and he is now one of the premier ultra runners. It's very niche for me, but the movie's coming out like this very week. Um, I don't, it's professionally done. I think they're having the what do you call it? The debut. I mean, if that's the actual, not at Grauman's Chinese Theater, obviously, but I think they're doing it in Colorado, and they're doing it like a simulcast online,
Oh, really?
possibly. Yeah, so it's coming out this week, and I'm excited. I was, being a techie kind of nerd person, but also being a ultra distance runner now, or trying to be one. Um, those stories to me hold a lot of nuggets of truth and valuable lessons to learn. So I'm excited to see that, because he runs like game perspective. He runs 200-mile races that are way harder than anything I've done. Not just because they're twice as far, but because they're going up and down mountains. I mean, mine have all been super flat, but that's definitely my most excited thing, because that's the only thing I really know about. I don't really watch Hollywood movies much anymore.
Okay.
Don't have time for it. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And as we were talking, I tried to Google it and I couldn't find it, so I gave up.
Yeah.
But
I'll shoot you a
anyway,
link later, but anyways, go ahead.
yeah. All right. Number 2, what are 2 non-health related goals you have for the next year?
One is that I want to launch my own webpage. My wife and I were just talking about this, yesterday, and that is a goal. I actually mentioned that on my Gourmet podcast as well. So hopefully by this time, I will have gotten off my butt and gotten that done. So it should be out there. Technically, the website exists,
Mm-hmm.
but there's nothing on it. I mean,
Okay.
there's like a mass page. So
So what would be for future, once it is up, what would be the domain?
I'm not even sure how I spelled it, to be honest. It's getting fit with the facts.
Okay.
It's like the
Cool.
shortened version of my last name. So I think in getting, it's not getting, it's just getting
Getting.
fit with the facts. And then I'm also going to do like a subdomain, like ultra fat to ultra runner. And a second point would be, I also want to start. I want to start and put into the process, I guess, is just be writing a book about my life story. And everybody wants to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's I think my focus is going to be to inspire people to realize, like, hey, this was not my goal now. I mean, back then, it was never my goal to run 100 miles. One
Yeah.
of my goals was just run a marathon. And I didn't run a marathon until I had done well past a marathon, like an event, until I had run well past 50 miles, like almost a dozen times.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, but you've done a marathon. I was like, yeah, I haven't run a marathon. So so I think in that, I think it's a matter of perspective. But then the other goal would be to actually get started and start the process of writing a book.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I've thought about that too. I actually think I'm going to start doing like blog posts on my web, because I have my website as well. And it's actually it's not live as of today, but it will be by the time this airs.
Cool.
Because I'm still editing it a little bit. But yeah, because I was like, I could start out just writing like blog posts about certain parts of my story, and then they could be like combined into a book kind of thing.
Right.
Because I have people all the time tell me I should write a book, and I'm like, I don't even know how to write a book. But
right.
yeah, but just right. Yeah. Okay. So question number 3. If someone came to you saying they were lacking motivation to stay consistent, what 3 pieces of advice would you give them?
You need to be accountable. So you need to find an external source, someone to hold your feet to the fire. I mean, that's pretty much works for everybody. And can we take a break
Yeah, we can.
real quick? You can cut this off.
Yeah. I will. I will edit and we'll come back.
I'll be right back, because I really need to use the restroom, and I've been
Okay.
holding out as long as I can. But I'll be right back.
No worries.
Okay.
Yep.
Hold on.
Okay. Question number 3. If someone came to you saying they were lacking motivation to stay consistent, what 3 pieces of advice would you give them?
I would say get an accountability partner. Someone. It doesn't need to be a coach, but it does need to be someone who when you have to report to. It could be a friend, and someone. A couple of people that I coach, And part of what I do is I'm their accountability partner, is with regards to, like you have to update. And I think that's part of the value of doing Instagram, is that if you're being completely honest and sharing what's happening, if you have to tell people that where you are, or what, how you've eaten or what you've done, it really spikes the level of success a lot. I'm sorry, what was the question again? Beyond
Yeah.
that?
What three pieces of advice would you give someone to stay consistent that were lacking motivation?
Okay. Find a plan, that it may not be your ultimately what helps you, but write it down. Keep it in front of you. Like you said, we're having something on your flip calendar.
Hmm.
It's always in front of you. It's not like it slips off the back of your mind and you forget
Yeah.
what's going on. And I would say you may have an ultimate goal, like I want to lose 400 pounds or something, but you need to set smaller goals within that. Because if you're going to do something great, like lose the amount of weight that you've lost, um, if you're always focusing on that far away goal, it makes it harder, because you forget, like, oh, I'll never lose 200 pounds. It's
Hmm.
such a daunting task that you need to find that the little steps along the way, because you don't go from the first floor to the second floor of your house in one step.
Hmm.
There's a lot of little steps that take you to go up those. And if you fail to see those and think it's just gonna be this, I was again, but trying to think of what you said. If all you think is like this nice glide up,
Yeah.
then you're gonna fail, because and you just like realize it's incremental. It's yeah. I just set up those things, write them down, come back to them, revisit them on a regular basis, and even then,
Hmm.
put into your schedule the revisiting, like
Yeah.
going back, status check. Because I mean, corporations do this all the time. They don't just like, okay, we're going to become the biggest hamburger company in the world. They have they have set goals. They have like check-ins and whatever.
Hmm.
Even, or car companies, same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's something I like to. So I used to have it on my Instagram, but I've changed my bio. I used to have like these goals every 50 pounds. I would have
Mm,
like a lot. I have like a lock on the ones that weren't there yet, and then I have like a
right,
something for the ones that did. And then eventually my bio had more stuff, and I didn't have room for everything, so I got rid of it.
right,
But it was still like, because it was tough when you're starting and you have such a big number to lose. Like that's impossible. Like to
right.
constantly get that. That's the mindset you have at first. Is you're like, that just seems impossible. Like it, and it's I like the quote I heard from Joe Rogan once, and it was like nothing is impossible, but he's like, but it's like the road is long. Like
Mm,
it's a long road, and nothing's given, right? It's kind of like the Goggins and Jocko
right.
kind of mindsets too. Is but it is possible. It just takes hard work.
Yes.
And but if you just look at that number and you're like, I want to be 250, but I'm 600, and you keep thinking about it, and then you're 500, but you're like, man, it's still so far away. But then you hit like 50 pounds lost, like that's a win. Like celebrate like the small
It
wins,
is,
right?
exactly. And like when I on my 100-mile run that I completed, like in one go, no breaks, no sleep,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. This guy, I mentioned this yesterday in my Instagram video that I did after my run. This guy came up to me on a bicycle. I hated that guy. And he's like asking me, he's like, so how far have you run? Like, how far do you have to go? And people always want to find out. And I wouldn't even answer his question,
Mm-hmm.
because if you start thinking like I've run 7 miles of 100, I still have 93 miles to go.
Mm-hmm.
You become overwhelmed by the task.
Yeah.
So my answer to him was, I talked about this in the video. I said, I've gone, like, these are the two things I know. I'm here now. I'm here and it is now. That's all. I'm not even gonna talk
Mm-hmm.
about how long I've been going. I'm not gonna talk about how far I've gone. That's nothing. I'm not even gonna acknowledge those numbers,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like another step, another step, another step, and
Yeah.
then next thing you know, you've gone 50 miles. Next thing you know, you've gone 75 miles, and then had I not taken that next step, 125,000 times, I wouldn't have gotten even to that point.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. All right. So question number 4. What have you discovered about yourself during your journey that has surprised you the most?
Um, that I, well, I guess that I actually can go 100 miles.
Yeah. It's pretty impressive.
That I can lose 200 pounds.
Hmm.
Things that you're kind of like off in the distance, things I wanted to do, but things you're able to do things that you can't even comprehend.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, when you were a kid, did you ever think that you could actually be a father? I mean, you maybe wanted to, but like suddenly now here it is. I mean,
No,
you
I
probably
mean,
never dwelled on it.
I didn't dwell on it, right? It wasn't like I thought about it. But after being married for we've been married like 13 years. Um, After a while, you kind of because it didn't happen. So it kind of it was one of those things that kind of went out of my mind. Like
Right.
And adoption's super expensive.
Yes.
So I just kind of relegated to the fact that it wasn't going to happen for a while. And now
Right.
it did. So, it's crazy. All right. So last question. Uh, it's a little wacky. Little preface.
Okay.
Uh, if in 150 years science fails to save us and all that is left is a book about your life, what would the title be and what would the blurb tell us about Eddie?
Um, Maybe it would be titled something like "Refusing to Quit." And I hate you, Brett. This is a nasty question. Like it's actually bringing tears to my eyes. It's kind of emotional. Um, and I guess the blurb would be that he didn't give up. He kept going, and he pushed himself beyond his perceived limits, um, which may be semi arrogant. I mean, because obviously you're talking about yourself, aren't you? So, which is part of the
Yeah.
point. Well crafted question. And yeah, I mean, I think that's what I want people to take away. It's not that I'm special, and it's certainly not that I'm genetically superior to anyone else, but that you need to seek truth.
Hmm.
And you need to get past all the things that the media, the TV, that the grocery store is telling you. Like you need this food, you, there's so much stuff out there that we don't need.
Hmm.
And I think
Yeah.
we cloud our lives with no, noise um, that doesn't need to be there. It's distracting us from our ultimate potential. And that if you can push past all of that and learn what's really important, health, you know, business wise, your relationships, spirituality, you can really find, this is going to sound like new agey, but like a higher level. I mean,
Hmm.
there's definitely more that you can do, that I can do, that anyone who's watching this can do, because I promise you, especially if you're morbidly obese, like we both have been, um, that there's a lot more that's there, and we've been attacked on the outside.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
We can get past all of that, you've got to take the battle in a sense to yourself and then push back. You can't just keep accepting what everybody else wants you to do.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. I like the book and the title and the blurb and
Okay.
all that. It was really good. That's my favorite question because it gets such a varied answer from
Mm-hmm.
everyone. Because it's interesting to see. Uh, One person even said I'm kind of depressed if all that's left is a book about me. But yeah. All right.
You're not going to
So
be alive in 150 years. We
yeah.
all that's the other thing. We're all going to die.
Yeah. We're all
I
gonna
mean,
be dead.
it's not. I haven't found the secret.
All right, Eddie. Well, it was nice to have you on today. Where can people
Thank
find
you,
you if they
Brett.
want to reach out to you on Instagram or wherever else?
Uh, because I know it's actually running right now, and I'm actually posting there, and some people would say I'm posting too much. Is they can find me on Instagram at ultra fat to ultra runner. So it's um,
I'll link it in the
okay,
show
you can link
notes.
it, but yeah,
Yeah.
so the two is the number two, not TO.
Okay.
And then on Facebook, presently I'm on there as Getting Fit with the Facts. That's actually a little harder to find, and I need to link the two accounts together until we get an actual website
Okay,
up and running.
cool. Yeah, yeah. Send me the link and I'll put it in the show notes, and so
Cool,
everyone
thank you.
can find you. But I want to thank everyone else for listening. You made it all the way to the end. Congratulations. Make sure to check out the show notes, as I just said, for links to everything we mentioned on the show. Hopefully, I'll find that documentary that I can link it there as well. Be sure to check out my website, becomingbrett.com. You can follow me at becomingbrett on Instagram and Twitter, and the show at becomingmorepod on Instagram. Until next time, give us a 5-star review and come back next week to learn how we can all become more.